When the original Gear Club Unlimited game released on the Nintendo Switch last year, there was a bit of a buzz about it, a modern, almost realistic racing game on the system that lacked that very thing. The fact that it was a mobile port with a very high price probably put a lot of people off, however, but the fact that we have a sequel right here and now and is a Nintendo Switch exclusive shows that the publisher Microids know there is an untapped audience here. Built specifically for the system, we're going to see how this holds up as a big boy release. Before we get into it, we would love it if you subscribe for more awesome, honest Nintendo Switch reviews and content. We do all sorts of stuff for everyone, we'd really appreciate it. Now, as I'm sure you'd expect, there's not a whole lot of story for Gear Club Unlimited 2, but you'd be surprised to know that they did actually try a little. Upon starting the single player, you'll be greeted with a small narrative involving you, as a test driver, being thrusted into the limelight after the main driver failed to show up. After exceeding expectations, you are now tasked with bringing your driving team through the ranks. That's pretty much it. It's obviously not essential, but I appreciate the effort. So on to gameplay. It's a racing game with racing in it. Thanks very much for watching. Oh, what, you want more depth than that? Well, okay. So, as stated, you have to build your way up from a small-time racing team to world class, making your way through the car classes from the low end A rank to the big boys in D rank. It's the classic racing game single-player concept of progress. You have different cups that you have to participate in to earn prize money, as well as to move on to the next cup. Each cup consists of a handful of races or events, usually a standard race or time trial, but maybe even an elimination round where the last racer in the pack is taken out every 20 seconds. What's weird about the time trial is that you'll still see all of your competitors on the track with you, but you can't interact with them. They're basically ghosts, but they look solid, so sometimes it can be a bit confusing as to which event you're actually doing. According to the PR, there are 250 races to participate in. I will take their word for it. And I think there's enough variety here to keep you entertained as you compete in ever faster races, earning money and unlocking better cars. Everything is laid out on a huge map that is trying to give the impression of an interconnected area, but tracks are very much segregated. There's no overworld to drive around in, it's just a fancy menu system where you can choose your races, enter car dealerships, and your garage area where you can tune up your car. It does its job fairly well and gives the game a grander impression than it actually has. This release features 51 cars from a variety of big name manufacturers, names even my grandma will have heard of. You've got your Dodge, your Koenigsegg, which is much easier to say than spell, Lotus, McLaren, and even the good old Bugatti Veyron. I'm not gonna lie, I'm fairly impressed that they've managed to secure the licenses for these cars. Microids aren't exactly the biggest publisher around, but I think they've got a nice range of quality and exciting machines for car fans out there. Personally, I'm always okay with knockoff brands in my racing games, but this certainly gives them a lot more brownie points from racing game fans. Their licenses don't cover everything. The fairly obvious omission is like Ferrari, but I guess they're kind of like Nintendo of the car world, holding their properties very dear. So, how do the cars feel? Well, that's a difficult one for me to comment on, as I'm not well versed in modern racing games as a Nintendo Switch only owner. I can't be comparing it to that of Forza or Gran Turismo because of my lack of experience with recent entries in those franchises. But I would say that it feels fairly nice, if on the extra twitchy side, especially for the more high-end cars which tend to oversteer like crazy. They are overall on the more arcadey side of things, no doubt, but that's fine by me. The lack of analog input for acceleration will probably be difficult for many gamers to handle if they're used to the more advanced controllers of other consoles and their racing games. It might be a step too far in the past for some. I think it's perfectly serviceable, if not as precise as I would have liked. With your initial Mini Cooper and first couple of races, you'll probably get the impression that the controls are on the sluggish side, not exactly doing what you want when you want. But this is just with the underpowered, undertuned car that's designed to be that way. Once you've upgraded it a little or moved on to another vehicle, you'll see that actually most vehicles are very responsive, if a little bit too much at times. There are racing assists as per usual these days. You have your standard racing line, which is the biggest help for me personally, but also you have the braking assist, turning assist, you can even put auto accelerate on if you want to. In my opinion, even as someone who's not particularly good at racing games, most of these should be turned off immediately. In this game, it feels like you're constantly fighting against them to do what you want to do, and most of the bad gameplay you're seeing here is me fighting against it until I decided to turn everything off. It's a fairly easy game, not a whole lot of difficulty as long as you keep on top of things upgrading wise. In your garage you can buy better things for your car like an engine or tyres. It's hardly an exhaustive upgrading system. You just buy the next upgrade you want and equip it. There's no fine tuning your car to perfection here. You can even add decals to customize your car, but for some reason the placement is both excessively twitchy and unresponsive. I know that's an oxymoron, but when you do it yourself you'll know exactly what I mean. It makes decorating your car more of a task than it should be, and so I didn't bother after the first attempt. I like how they've tried to add a bit of simulation management to the game where you can customize your garage, adding new sections, placing them where you want, and even adding decorations. I do love a bit of base building in games, and I'm not entirely sure what this adds to the game, or if I'm compelled as I usually am, but I'm pleased they attempted it here in a racing game of all things. That's not something I'm used to. Following another recent racing trend, the rewind feature is here, and you'll probably be making the most of it just like I did. At any point in the race you can press the X button to pause the action and then rewind a few seconds previously, usually to stop you smacking into the wall and losing first place. Now obviously this means you can totally cheese the game if you want to do so, and I advise only using it sparingly despite the temptation. You'll feel a lot better for sure. Overall in the gameplay department, it's very solid for what it's trying to offer. The feeling of the cars may be okay at best, but it's still nice to play on the Switch with plenty of single player offerings, and this will last a long time for sure. It does feel a little in the past, however, despite the modern implementations of racing aids and the rewind feature. There's just something about it that feels a little behind the times, whether it be the lack of damage on cars or the invisible walls that greet you when you think you're skipping a corner. But no, smash. It doesn't feel of its time. That's not a bad thing per se, but if you're expecting a fully modern approach to Gear Club Unlimited 2, you may be a little disappointed. If you want to play locally with friends, there is an option of split screen mode between up to 4 people. It's a nice option to have if you have friends over and you fancy a change from Smash Bros. Yeah, right. There's currently no online play, which is a big omission, although there is a planned update to bring it later. I think this may be a mistake on the part of the developer due to it being a tad late. I'm worried that by the time the online section is implemented, the game's player base may have dwindled and there won't be any more people still available to play with. I think they obviously wanted to meet the pre-Christmas release date to maximize sales, but it's still not great for the consumers. Visually, Gear Club Unlimited 2 looks decent. There's not a whole lot of the more realistic style of races currently on the Switch, and if I'm being honest, I can't think of any aside from the original game. So it's a nice change of pace for the system. Saying that, it can't hope to keep up with the latest generation of consoles, no way. It looks last generation, or maybe even further back than that. The car models themselves look pretty sweet, but the lighting and reflections that constantly sheen off them just aren't good. It's really low quality and almost embarrassing when showed close up. I'm not sure why they chose to show the car models off so much in close detail when the reflections are just so pixelated. It really doesn't look good. The environments are okay, and there's a nice variety of weather types and biomes ranging from icy mountains to desert and forest. There's a cheeky bit of copy and pasting with assets, but I won't hold it back for that. There are only a few camera angles, a couple of third-person ones, as well as a HUD camera, sadly no cockpit view, for which I know a lot of racing fans love. The performance is very important for a racing game. Gear Club Unlimited 2 is mostly very sound and stable, for the most part. But there is a very big issue that happens time and time again. Every now and again there will be a micro pause in the gameplay. It may only be a few milliseconds long, but it's very noticeable when traveling at high speeds especially. Docked mode generally gets away with it, but in handheld it's far more noticeable. It's like the game is struggling to keep up with itself, and although it doesn't ruin the game for me, it's still very distracting and it should not be here. The final moan is actually a big one. The load times are atrocious. You'll be spending almost as long racing as you will waiting for the races to load. A good minute or so is dedicated to every transition you do in this game, even entering a garage or car dealership, and it's tiresome. This is not a quick pick up and play game because those spare 10 minutes you will mostly have dedicated to waiting around. The audio is pretty important for a racing game, not only in the soundtrack but also in the vehicular sounds. Starting with the soundtrack, however, it's very disappointing. There's almost no music during the gameplay, and what little there is just generic stuff made for the game. Again, looking at modern competitors, many of them offer an eclectic, exciting soundtrack full of licensed music to race with, but sadly it's an oversight for Gear Club 2. The cars, well, they sound okay, but they could have done with a little more oomph and meat behind them. For value, Gear Club Unlimited 2 is £54.99 on the UK eShop and $59.99 in the US. Is it worth that price? No. The publisher Microids, as much as we appreciate their efforts to bring back classics with ports and something a bit different with Gear Club 2, they don't pull any punches when it comes to their prices. It's a fun time, but I don't think the budget gone into this one means it should have been priced this way. I would have said about £30 is in more than enough. A cheaper alternative, at least in the near future, is that the game is also out physically, and if you'd like to purchase a copy, then consider buying through our Amazon shop in the description below. If not this game, I'm sure you can find a nice Christmas gift or two for a loved one with our hand-picked selections of Nintendo Switch games and accessories. Buying Christmas gifts using our Amazon shop helps us out so much at no extra cost to you, so we'd appreciate it if you'd consider that. And before we get into my final verdict, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more awesome Switch reviews like this one. Overall, I think Gear Club 2 provides a nice little bit of well-needed variety in the Nintendo Switch's library. It's packed with content that racing fans will probably enjoy. Hardcore racing elitists may scoff at the more arcadey nature this provides, but that's fine. That's not what Gear Club 2 is going for. It does have its major problems though. It's priced well above the production value gone into it, and the visuals and audio each have their flaws, plus the gameplay isn't flawless either, with performance issues. And load times, oh my god, the load times. Despite that, I think you will enjoy Gear Club Unlimited 2 after it's hopefully patched with addition of online play, as well as a much cheaper price. I would give it a 7 out of 10, and I think I'm being fairly generous with that one. Okay guys, now I suggest that you head over to watch my review of Katamari Damacy on the Nintendo Switch. That game needs a lot more love, and I want you guys to buy it so that we get more Katamari games. So please watch my review of that, and I'll see you guys over there. Take care.